didn't think you'd polite to listen, sir.
Well, I'm sorry for your sake. I can't play accurately. Anyone can play accurately. But I think I can play with a wonderful expression. So that's my forte. I keep Science for Life.
Yes, sir.
And speaking of Science for Life, did you put up the PBJs for Lady Bracknell?
Yes, sir.
Ah. Oh, by the way, Lane, I saw that on your books that when Lord Shoreman and Mr. Worthy dined here last Thursday night, it's been labeled that 8 bottles of cider has been consumed.
Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint.
Why isn't that a bachelor's establishment? The servers inadvertently drink the cider. I asked merely for information.
I attribute it to the superior quality of the cider, sir. We have observed that in married households, the cider is rarely ever misbranded.
Good heavens, is married life that demoralizing?
It is a rare test and state, sir. I have only been married once. That was the consequence of a misunderstanding between me and a young person.
Well, I do say, Lane, I'm not very much interested in your family life.
It is not a very interesting subject, sure. I barely think of it myself.
Very naturally. That will do, Lane.
Thank you, sir.
Lane's view on marriage seems somewhat lax. Really, if the lower class can't set up a better example for us, what is the use of them? They seem like a class with no more responsibility.
Mr. Ernest Worthing?
How are you, my dear boy?
Oh, pleasure, pleasure. Eating as usual, I see, Algie.
I find it is customary to take some slight refreshments in one establishment at 5 o'clock. Where on earth have you been?
In the country.
Oh, what on earth do you do in this country?
When one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses other people. It is excessively boring.
Who are the people you amuse?
Oh, neighbors, neighbors.
Oh, got a nice neighbor in your part of Shropshire?
Perfectly horrid. Never speak to one of them.
Unless you must amuse them. By the way, Shropshire is part of your county, is it not?
Shropshire? Yes, of course. Why all these cups? Why PB&Js?
Oh.
Who's coming to tea?
Oh, merely Aunt Augusta and Gwendolyn.
How perfectly delightful.
Yes, but I can't say that Aunt Augusta won't quite approve of you being here.
May I ask why?
It is the way you flirt with Gwendolyn. Perfectly horrid. It's almost about as way she flirts with you.
I am in love with Gwendolyn. I have come up to town strictly to propose to her.
I thought you had come up here for pleasure. I call that business.
How utterly unromantic you are.
I don't see anything romantic in proposing. Yes, it's very romantic to be in love, but when one wants to be accepting, one usually is. Then what is the use of it? You see, the very essence of romance is uncertainty. Ever I get married, I certainly try to forget that fact.
I have no doubts about that. The divorce court was made specially for whose minds were so curiously constituted.
There's no debate on that subject. Divorces are made in heaven. Please don't touch the sandwiches. Those are made especially for Aunt Augusta.
But you have been eating them this whole time.
But that is a different thing. You see, I am your nephew. Here, have some bread and butter. The bread and butter were made for Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn's devoted to bread and butter.
And perfectly good bread and butter it is too.
Well, you don't have to eat it as if you're going to eat it at all. You see, you act like you're married to Gwendolyn, but you are not married to Gwendolyn, and I don't think you will ever be.
May I ask why?
Well, first off, girls never marry the men they flirt with. They don't think it's right. And in that subject, it accounts for all the bachelors one sees in London. And in the second place, I don't give my consent.
Your consent?
Yes, my consent. If you don't remember, Gwendolyn is my first cousin. And before I allow you to marry her, you have to clear up the whole question of Cecily.
Cecily? Who on earth is Cecily? I don't know anyone by the name of Cecily.
Lane, please bring me the eyeglass case Mr. Worthy left here last Thursday night when he dined here.
Yes, sir.
So you have my eyeglass case. I've been searching frantically for it. I've been writing letters to Scotland Yard about it. You should have told me. I was nearly offering a large reward.
Well, I wish you would offer a large reward. I'm pretty much hard up about it.
Well, there's no use in offering a large reward now that the thing is found.
But, Jack, I think that's rather mean of you, Ernest. Because now that I've seen the inscription aside, I find this thing isn't yours after all.
Of course it's mine. You've seen it with me 100 times. And you have no right to read what's inside. It's very ungentlemanly to read in a private eyeglass case.
Oh, it's absurd to have a hard and fast rule of when one should read and when one shouldn't read. In fact, modern culture depends when one shouldn't read.
Well, I won't discuss with you about modern culture. It is enough to drive one perfectly frantic. Now just give me my eyeglass case back.
No, I cannot do that, because you see, as I told you before, now that I see the description inside, it says it's a present for someone of the name Cecily. And you said you know no one by that name.
Well, if you must know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes, charming old lady she is too. Lives at Tunbridge Wells.
Yes, but why does your aunt from Tunbridge Wells calls herself Little? From Little Cecily, for their fondest love.
What is there in that? Some aunts are tall, some aunts are not tall. That is surely something an aunt should decide for herself.
Yes, that may be, but why aunt, no matter her size, calls her own nephew her uncle? From Little Cecily, with her fondest love, to her dear Uncle Jack. And besides, your name isn't Jack, it's Ernest.
It isn't Ernest. It's Jack.
You have always told me it was Ernest. I have introduced you to everyone as if it was Ernest. In fact, you look as if your name was Ernest. In fact, you are one of the most earnest-looking person I have ever seen in my life. In fact, look, it's in your card. Mr. Ernest Worthy before the Albany. I'll keep this as truth as ever you try to deny to me, or to Gwendolyn, or to anyone else.
My name is Ernest in town and Jack in the country, and that eyeglass case was given to me in the country.
Yes, but that does not explain your dear little Aunt Cecily from Tunbridge Wells calls you her uncle. Come, old boy, you must have out with it.
Oh, Algie, you speak exactly as if you were a dentist. It is very vulgar to talk like a dentist when one isn't. It produces a false impression.
Ah, but that is what dentists always do. Now go on. Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country? But I may tell you candidly, I've always suspected you, and not thought of you, and now confirmed thought of you being a Burnsist.
Burnsist? What on earth is a Burnsist?
I will tell you the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you're kind enough to tell me why you Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Well, produce my eyeglass case first.
Here it is. Now go on, and pray make it probable.
Thanks. Now, if only I could find my glasses.
Now go on.
There's nothing improbable about it. Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was a young child, made me his will guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who addresses me as uncle from motives of respect that you could not possibly appreciate, resides at my place in the country with her admiral governess, Miss Prism.
Where is this place by the county, by the way?
That is nothing to you, dear boy. I may tell you candidly it's not in Shropshire.
Ah, I suspected that, my dear fellow, because you see, I've already burned in that location twice already. Now go on. Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear boy, I don't know if you will be able to understand it. You are hardly serious enough. When one is placed in a high moral position, as guardian, one has to adopt a high moral tone on all subjects. And as a high moral tone can conduce either one's pleasure or one's happiness, I have always pretended to have a younger brother by the name of Ernest who lives in the town so that I could come up to town as often as I liked. That, my dear boy, is the whole truth, pure and simple.
The truth is rarely pure and never simple. You make modern life very tedious if it were. In fact, you make modern literature a complete impossibility.
I can quite understand that.
Literary criticism isn't your forte, my dear fellow. Leave that to the people who haven't finished university. They do it so well in the daily papers. No, but what you are is a Burnsist. I was quite right saying you were a Burnsist. In fact, you're one of the most advanced Burnsists I know.
Burnsist? What is a Burnsist?
You see, you have invented a very useful younger brother of the name Ernest. So you're able to come up to the town as often as you like. I, however, have invented an important invalid of the name Burns, so I'm able to come to the town as often as I like. You see, if it wasn't for Burns' incredibly bad health, I wouldn't be able to dine with you to Willis tonight, because I was very much invested in my dear Aunt Augusta.
I haven't invited you to anywhere tonight.
I know, you're surely careless about sending out invitations. You know, nothing annoys people so much without receiving any invitations.
You much better dine with your Aunt Augusta.
I haven't the smallest intention of doing anything of that kind. You see, I've already dined with her on Monday, and dining with one's own relations is quite enough. And in the second place, whenever I do dine with them, I treat them as one of the family. I'm not giving no woman at all, but two. And in the third place, I know perfectly well who she will place me next to. She will place me next to Mary Farquhar. flirt with their own husbands across the table. This is indecent. In fact, it's horrid. You know, the amount of women who flirt with their own husbands is quite on the rise in London. And in the fourth place, now that I know you're a Burnsist, I naturally want to talk to you, Burnsist. I want to tell you the rules.
I'm not a Burnsist at all. If I marry Gwendolyn, and she is the only woman I will ever marry in my life, I will kill my brother. In fact, I think I'll kill him in any case. Cecily is a little too much interested in it. It is rather a bore. So I'm going to kill my brother, and I strongly encourage you to do the same with your invalid friend who has the absurd name.
Huh, nothing will induce me in that part of Burns. You see, when a man marries, which seems to be extremely problematic, who would like to know Burns? You see, when a man marries without knowing Burns, he has a very tedious time of it.
If I marry Gwendolyn and she is the only woman I will ever love in my life, I certainly won't want to know Burns.
Huh, then your wife will. You seem to realize in married life, 3 is a company, 2 is none.
That, my dear young friend, is what the corrupt French drama has been propounding for the last 50 years.
Yes, and the happy English home husband is at that in half the time.
Pray don't be cynical. It is perfectly easy to be cynical.
It's hard to be anything nowadays. There's such a beastly competition about it. Ah, that must be my relatives. You see, only relations and creditors ever knock in a Wagnerian manner. But say I can distract my Aunt Augusta for more than 10 minutes. You think that will give you enough time to propose to Gwendolyn? And might we dine to Willis's tonight?
I suppose so, if you want to.
Well, you must be serious about it. I hate it when people aren't ever serious about meals. Very shallow.
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax. Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you're behaving very well today.
I'm feeling very well, Aunt Augusta.
That's not quite the same thing. In fact, the two things rarely go together.
Hear me. You're smart.
I'm always smart. Am I not, Mr. Worthing?
You're quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I'm not that. It would leave no room for development, and I intend to develop in many directions.
I'm sorry for the late Algernon, but I was obliged to call on dear Lady Harbury. I haven't seen her since her poor husband's death. I never seen a woman so altered. She looks quite 20 years younger. And now I'll have a cup of tea and one of the sandwiches you promised me.
Certainly, Aunt Augusta.
Gwendolyn, won't you come and sit here?
Thanks, Mama. I'm quite comfortable where I am.
Hear me, Elaine. Where are the PBJs?
There was no peanut butter down at the market tonight, sir. I went out twice.
No peanut butter.
No, sir, not even for ready money.
That will do, Elaine. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm greatly distressed, Aunt Augusta. There seems to be no peanut butter. Not even ready for money.
That is quite all right. I have some comfort with Lady Harbury, who seems to me to be living entirely for pleasure now.
I heard her hair has got quite gold from grief.
It certainly has changed its color, from causes I, of course, cannot say. Thank you. I have quite a treat for you tonight. I'm going to send you down with Mary Farquhar. Such a nice woman, so attentive to her husband. It's delightful to watch them.
It is a great blow, but I have to say that I will have to give up the pleasure with dining with you tonight, Aunt Augusta.
I hope not, Algernon. It'll put my table completely out. Your uncle would have to dine upstairs. Fortunately, he's accustomed to it.
I need hardly to say, it is a great bore on me, but I recently got a telegram from Burns Estate. They seem that he has gotten quite ill, and I think I should be with him right now.
It is very strange. This Mr. Burns seems to suffer from curiously bad health.
Yes, poor Mr. Burns, a dreadful invalid.
Well, I think it is high time for Mr. Burns decide whether he was going to live or to die. This shilly-shally with the question is absurd, nor do I in any way approve of the modern sympathy of the invalids. Illness of any kind is hardly a thing to be considered in others. Health is a primary duty of life. I'm always telling that to your poor uncle, but he never seems to take much notice as far as the ailments goes. I'd be much obliged if I'd ask Mr. Burns not to have a relapse on Saturday, for I rely on you to arrange my music for me. It is my last reception, and one wants something that will encourage conversation, particularly at the end of the season when everyone has said practically whatever that they had to say, which in most cases was probably not much.
I was actually trying to talk to Mr. Burns, if he's still conscious, but I can promise you by Saturday he wouldn't have like a relapse like today. But you see, the music is great difficulty. See, if one plays good music, people won't listen. If one plays bad music, people don't talk. It is a great challenge, but I'll draw out the music maker if you'll kindly come with me to the next room.
Thank you, Algernon. So delightful of you. I'm sure it'd be delightful after a few expurgations. French songs I cannot possibly allow. People seem to think that they are improper and look shocked, which is vulgar, or laugh, which is worse. German sounds a very respectable language. I do believe so. Gwendolyn, you will accompany me.
Certainly, Mother.
Charming weather we're having, Miss Fairfax.
Pray don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I'm always quite certain they mean something else, and that makes me so nervous.
I do mean something else.
I thought so. In fact, I am never wrong.
And I would like to be able to take advantage of Lady Brandon's temporary absence.
I would certainly advise you to do so. Mona has a way of coming back suddenly into a room that I have often had to speak to her about.
Gwendolyn, ever since I have met you, I have liked you more than any other girl I have ever met since I met you.
Yes, I'm quite well aware of the fact. And I often wish that, in public at any rate, you were more demonstrative. You have always had an irresistible fascination to me. Even from before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in a time of ideals, a fact constantly mentioned in the more expensive monthly magazines and is reaching the provincial pulpits, I am told. And my ideal has always been to love someone of the name Ernest. There's something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. From the moment Algernon told me he had a friend called Ernest, I knew I was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwendolyn?
Passionately,
Darling, you don't know how happy you've made me.
my own Ernest.
But you aren't supposing that if my name wasn't Ernest, you wouldn't be able to love me?
But your name is Ernest.
Yes, of course. But saying it wasn't, would you still be able to love me then?
That is clearly a metaphysical speculation, and like most metaphysical speculations, has very little reference to the actual facts of life as we know them. Supposing, what other names could you think of?
Jack, for instance. I think Jack would be a charming name.
Jack? No, there is very little music in the name Jack, if any at all indeed. It does not thrill, it produces no vibrations. I have known several Jacks, and they have all been, without exception, more than usually plain. Besides, Jack is a known domesticity for John, and I pity any woman who is married to a man named John. She is probably never allowed to know the entrancing pleasures of a single moment's solitude. The only really safe name is Ernest.
Gwendolyn, I must be christened at once. We must be married at once. There is no time to be lost.
Married, Mr. Worthing!
Why, of course. You told me that you loved me. Well, I told you I loved you, and you told me you were not so far from indifferent to me.
Yes, but you haven't proposed to me yet. Nothing has been said at all about marriage. The subject has not even been touched on.
Well, may I propose to you now?
I think it would be an admirable opportunity, and I think it only fair to tell you, quite frankly beforehand, that I am fully determined to accept you.
Gwendolyn,
Yes, Ernest, what have you got to say to me?
what I have to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolyn, will you marry me?
Of course I will, darling. How long you have been about it? I'm afraid you've had very little experience in how to propose.
But, darling, I've never loved anyone else in the world but you.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. I know my brother Gerald does. All my girlfriends tell me so. What blue eyes you have, Ernest. They are quite blue. I hope you will always look at me just like that, especially when there are other people watching.
Mr. Worthing, rise from the semi-recumbent posture. It is most indecorous.
Mama, I must beg you to retire. This is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing is not quite finished yet.
Finished what, may I ask?
Mama, I'm engaged to be married to Mr. Worthing.
You are not engaged. When you do become engaged, I, your father, should his health permit him, will inform you of the fact. An engagement should come upon a young girl as a surprise, Pleasant or unpleasant as the case may be, it is hardly in manner that she should be allowed to reign for herself. Well, I've put a few questions to you, Mr. Worthing. Gwendolyn, you wait for me below in the carriage.
Mama!
In the carriage, Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn, the carriage! Mr. Worthing, you may have a seat.
Thank you, but I prefer standing.
I must confess, you're not on my list of eligible young men, although I have the same list as the Duchess of Bolton. We work together, in fact, though I'm quite ready to answer your name, if you answer what truly affectionate mother desires. Do you work?
Yes, I do.
I'm glad to hear it. There are far too many idle men in London as it is. A man should always have an occupation of some kind. How old are you?
29.
That is a good age to be married at. I've always had an opinion that if a man desires to be married, he should either know everything or know nothing. Which do you know?
Well, Lady Bracknell, I know nothing.
I'm glad to hear it. I do not approve of anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate exotic fruit. Touch it and the bloom is gone. The whole theory of modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in England, it produces no effect whatsoever. If it did, it would prove a serious danger to the upper class and lead to acts of violence in Brownsburg Square. What is your income?
Between 70 and 80,000 a year.
In land or in investments?
In investments, chiefly.
That is satisfactory. But between the duties enacted during one's life and the duties enacted after one's death, land has ceased to be either a profit or a pleasure. It gives one position and prevents one from keeping it up. That's all that can be said about man.
I have a country house, of course, with some land, but about 16,000 acres, I believe. But that I don't count that as any of my main profits. As far as I can make out, the poachers are the only ones that can profit out of it.
A country house. How many bedrooms? Well, that point can be cleared up afterwards. You have a townhouse, I hope. A girl with a simple, unspoiled nature like Gwendolyn could hardly be expected to reside in the country.
I have a house in Belgrave Square, but it is let by the year to Lady Bloxham. But I can get it back at any time with 6 months' notice.
Lady Bloxham, I do not know her.
Oh, she's a lady considerably advanced in years. She goes about very little.
Nowadays that is no guarantee of respectability of character. What number of Belgrave Square?
149.
The unfashionable side. I thought there was something here. But that could easily be altered.
Do you mean the fashion or the side?
Both, if necessary, I presume. What are your policies?
I'm afraid I have none. I'm a liberal unionist.
Oh, the Countess Tories. They dine with us or come in the evening at any rate. Now to minor matters. Are your parents living?
I have lost both my parents.
To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, might seem as a misfortune, but to lose both looks like a carelessness. Who was your father? He was evidently a man of some wealth. Was he in what the radical people call the Purple Commons, or did he rise from the ranks of aristocracy?
Well, I said I've lost both my parents. It would be near to the fact that my parents have lost me. I was found.
Found?
Yes, I was found. The late Mr. Thomas Cardew, a man of a charitable and kindly disposition, found me in Victoria Station. He gave me the name of Worthing because he had a first-class ticket to Worthing in his pocket at the time. Worthing is a place in Sussex. It is a seaside resort.
Where did this charitable gentleman who had a first-class ticket to the seaside resort find you?
In a handbag.
A handbag?
Yes, a large black leather handbag with handles to it. A very ordinary handbag, in fact.
In what locality did this Mr. James or Thomas Cardew come across this ordinary handbag?
In a cloakroom.
A cloakroom?
Yes, a cloakroom at Victoria Station. The Brighton line.
The line is immaterial. Mr. Worthing, I must confess, I am somewhat bewildered by what you have just told me. To be born, or at any rate bred, in a handbag, whether it handles or not, seems to me to display the ordinary decency of family life, and reminds one of the worst excuses of the French Revolution. I presume you knew what that movement led to. As for the particular locality in which the handbag was found, a cloakroom at a railway station might serve to conceal a social indiscretion, has probably been used for that purpose before now, could hardly be regarded as an assured basis of a definite position and a good society.
Well, then what do you advise me to do so? I need hardly say that I would do anything to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness.
Mr. Worthing, I would advise you to come to some conclusion and make some relations, to produce at least one parent of either sex before the season is quite over.
I have no idea how I could do that. I can produce a handbag at any time. It is in my dressing room at home. I hope that satisfies you.
Me, sir, what does it have to do with me? You can hardly expect that I and Lord Bracknell will allow our only daughter, a girl brought up with the utmost care, to form an alliance with Parcell and marry into a cloakroom. Good morning, Mr. Worthing.
Good morning! Algy! Knock off that stupid song! How idiotic you are!
How'd it go, boy? You didn't mean to say Gwendolyn has refused you. I know it's always a way with Gwendolyn, always refusing people. I think it's very ill-natured of her.
Oh, Gwendolyn is right as a trivet. As far as she is concerned, we are engaged. Her mother is horrible. Never met such a Gorgon. Well, I've never actually met a Gorgon before, but I've heard they're really bad. But she is a monster without being a myth, which is rather unfair. I'm sorry, Algy, for speaking ill-natured of your family in front of you.
My dear boy, I love hearing my relations abused. You see, one's own relation is just a pack of tedious people who have the smallest instinct of survival and the smallest intention of dying.
Oh, that's nonsense.
It isn't.
Well, I won't argue about it with you. All you want to do is argue.
That's what things were originally made for.
Upon my word, if I thought that, I'd shoot myself. You don't think that Gwendolyn will become like her mother in about 150 years, do you, Algy?
My dear boy, all women become like their mothers. That is their tragedy. As for men, they don't. That's his.
Is that clever?
It's perfectly phrased, as every ostracization in civil life should be.
I'm sick to death of cleverness nowadays. Everyone you meet is clever. You don't go anywhere without meeting clever people. I wish to goodness we had a few fools left.
We have.
We do? I would surely like to meet them. What do they talk about?
What, the fools? Oh, about the clever people.
What fools?
Oh, by the way, did you tell Gwendolyn that your name was Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
Oh, one doesn't say such things in front of a sweet, nice, refined girl like Gwendolyn. What ideas you have about treating a lady?
Oh, but what about your profligate brother? What about your profligate brother, Ernest?
Oh, by the end of the week, I shall have killed him. I will say he died in Paris of apoplexy. Lots of people die of apoplexy nowadays, don't they?
Yes, but it's hereditary. It's the sort of thing that runs through the family. You best say he died from severe chill.
Are you sure severe chill isn't hereditary or anything?
Of course it isn't.
Very well then. My poor brother Ernest, to be carried off in Paris by a severe chill, that gets rid of him.
But what about Miss Cardew? You said that she was a little too much invested in your brother Ernest. Won't she feel a great loss for him?
Oh, Cecily isn't the silly kind of romantic girl. She has a capital appetite, goes long walks, and pays no attention at all to her lessons.
I very much would like to meet Cecily.
And I will make sure you never do. She's excessively pretty and only 18.
Well, did you tell Gwendolyn you have an excessively pretty ward that's only 18?
Oh, one doesn't blurt these things out like that. What ideas you have to treat a woman?
The only way to treat a woman is to make love to her, if she is pretty. If she is plain, someone else.
Well, that's nonsense.
It isn't. Oh, yeah. Oh, by the way, oh, wait. I'm greatly distressed. But we must get up and get ready to go. You know it's nearly 7. We have to leave now if we want to get a good table of blisses tonight. You know it's nearly 7.
It is always nearly 7.
Well, I'm hungry.
I've never known you when you weren't.
Well, what might you want to do after dinner? Would you like to go to the theater?
Oh no, I hate listening.
Would you like to go to the club?
Oh no, I hate speaking.
Oh, might we turn around the Empire at 10?
Oh no, I hate looking at things. It's so silly.
Then what shall we do?
Nothing.
This is such really hard work to do nothing. But I don't mind hard work when there's no definite objective of any kind.
Mr. Fairfax?
Gwendolyn, upon my word.
Algie, kindly turn your back. I have something very particular to say to Mr. Worthing.
Really, Gwendolyn? I can't say I can allow this.
Algie, you always adopt such a strictly immoral attitude towards life. You are not quite old enough to do that yet.
My own one.
Ernest, we may never be married. And by the look on Mama's face, I fear we never shall. Few parents nowadays pay any regard to what their children have to say to them. The old-fashioned respect for the young is fast dying out. But although she may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and I may marry someone else, and marry often, there is nothing she can say or do that will alter my eternal devotion to you.
Dear Gwendolyn.
The story of your romantic origin, as related to me by Mama with unpleasing comments, has naturally stirred the deeper fibers of my nature. Your Christian name has always had an irresistible fascination to me. The simplicity of your character makes you exquisitely incomprehensible to me. Your town address at the Albany I have. What is your address in the country?
The Manor House, Woolton, Hertfordshire.
There is a good postal service, I suppose. It may be necessary to do something desperate. That, of course, will take serious consideration. We will communicate daily.
My own darling.
How long do you remain in town?
Till Monday.
Good. Algie, you may turn round now.
Thanks, I already did.
You may also ring the bell.
You will let me see you out, won't you, my own one?
Certainly.
I will see Miss Fairfax out.
Yes, sir.
Lane, a glass of cider, please.
Yes, sir.
Lane, tomorrow I'm going Burnsing, so you can put out my jacket, my night shirt, and all my other burn suits.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow, Lane, it's going to be a fine day.
It never is, sir.
You're a perfect pessimistic, Lane.
I try my best to give satisfaction, sir.
Thank you.
Now there is a nice, sweet, refined girl. The only girl I will ever love in my whole entire life. What are you so amused at?
Oh, I'm just anxious about Burns, that's all.
If you don't take care someday, Burns is going to get you into some serious scrapes.
I love scrapes. The only things are never serious.
Oh, you just talk nonsense. All you talk is nonsense.
Nobody ever does.
Your German grammar is on the table. Turn over to page 15. You will repeat yesterday's lesson.
But I don't like German. It isn't at all a good language. And besides, I think it looked quite plain after my German lesson.
Child, you know how anxious your guardian is and you should improve yourself in every way. He laid particular stress on your German, as he was leaving for town yesterday.
As you,
He always lays stress on your German as he is leaving for town.
I suppose that's why he looks a little bored when us are out together.
Cecil, your guardian does the best of him, but his gravity is especially to be commended when so cafeterias compared to the NCS. I don't know one who has a higher sensitivity and responsibility.
Uncle Jack's so very serious. Sometimes he's so serious I think he cannot be quite well.
Cecily, I'm surprised at you. Mr. Worthing has many troubles in his life. I know Merriman and Shelby will be out of place in this conversation. You must remember his constant excited, unfortunate man, his brother.
I wish you would allow that unfortunate young man, his brother, to come down here sometimes. I think we might have a good influence over him. You know German and geology and the things that can influence a man very much.
I don't think even I could produce an effect. According to his own brother's admission, is irritatingly weak and vacillating. Indeed, I'm not sure I would desire to reclaim him. I'm not in favor of this modern language, and that's what's good before a moment's notice. As a man self, so let him read. But you, put it down your waist, Cecily. I do not see what you keep on at all.
I keep a diary in order to enter the wonderful secrets of my life. If I didn't write them down, I should probably just forget all about them.
Mary, my dear Cecily, is a diary we all carry about with us.
Yes, but it usually chronicles the things that haven't happened, or that could possibly happen. I believe that memory is responsible for nearly all 3 volume novels that Nanny sends us.
When I speak so highly of the 3 volumes novel, Cecily, I wrote myself in earlier days.
Did you really, Miss Prism? How wonderfully clever you are. I hope it did not end happily. I hate the novels that end happily. They depress me so much.
The good ended happily and the bad end happily. That is what fiction means.
Yes, but it seems unfair. And was your novel ever published?
Alas, no. The manuscript unfortunately was abandoned. I used the word in the sense of lost and enslaved. But to your word, child, these speculations are profitless.
But is here Dr. Chasuble coming up in the garden?
Dr. Chasuble, this is indeed a pleasure.
And how are you, Miss Prism? You are just well?
Miss Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache. I think it would do her so much good to have a short stroll with you in the park, Dr. Chasuble.
Cecily, I have not mentioned anything about a headache.
Yes, Miss Prism, but I felt instinctively you had one. Indeed, I was thinking about that and not about my German lesson when the rector came in.
I hope, Cecily, you're not insensitive.
Oh, I'm afraid I am.
That is strange. Were I fortunate to be a Prism's pupil, I would have hung upon these. I spoke metaphorically, of course. My metaphors are drawn from these. Mr. Worthing, I suppose, is not returned from town yet.
We do not expect it until Monday afternoon.
Ah, yes. He is now one of those men who solely his enjoyments, as, by all accounts, that unfortunate young man, his brother, seems to be. But I must not disturb Egeria and the pupil any longer.
Egeria? My name is Letitia, Doctor.
A classical allusion, merely, drawn from the pagan others. I shall see you both, no doubt, at evensong.
I think, dear Doctor, I might have a stroll with you. I find I have a headache after all, and a strong mind do it some good.
With pleasure, Miss Prism, with pleasure. We might go far as the schools and back.
That would be delightful. Cecily, you will read your political economy in my absence. The chapter will follow the Rupee Amendment. It is somewhat too sensational. Even these metallic bonds have their own right side.
Horrid political economy, horrid geography, horrid German.
Mr. Ernest Worthing has just driven over from the station. He has brought his luggage with him.
Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4, the Albany. Uncle Jack's brother. Did you tell him Mr. Worthing was in town?
Yes, miss. He seemed very much disappointed. I mentioned that you and Miss Bridget were in the garden. He said he was anxious to speak to you for a moment.
Tell Mr. Ernest Worthing to come here. I suppose I had better talk to the housekeeper about getting room for him.
Yes, miss.
You are my little cousin Cecily, are you not?
You must be under some strange mistake. I'm not little. I believe I'm more than usually tall for my age. But yes, I'm your cousin Cecily. And you, I see from your card, are my cousin Ernest. My wicked cousin Ernest.
Oh, cousin Cecily, you mustn't think I'm wicked at all.
If you are not, then you have certainly been deceiving us all in an inexcusable manner. I hope you have not been leading a double life, pretending to be wicked and being really good all this time. That would be hypocrisy.
Huh. Well, I have been rather reckless.
I'm glad to hear it.
You know, now that you mention that subject, I have been bad, in my own little way.
I don't think you should be so proud of that, although it must have been pleasant.
Well, it's much more pleasant here, being here with you.
I don't see how you are here at all. Uncle Jack won't be back till Monday afternoon.
And it's greatly distressing, because I am bound to go back in the important meeting on Monday, and I'm very anxious to miss.
Couldn't you miss it anywhere but in London?
No, because it is in London.
Well, I know, of course, how important it is not to keep a business engagement, but I still think you had better wait until Uncle Jack arrives. He wants to speak to you about your immigrating.
About my what?
You're immigrating. He has gone out to buy you an outfit.
I certainly wouldn't let Jack pick out my outfit. He has no taste in neckties at all.
I don't think you will require neckties. Uncle Jack is sending you to Australia.
Australia? I'll sooner die.
Well, he said at dinner on Wednesday night that you'd have to choose between this world, the next world, and Australia.
Huh. Well, the accounts I've got it from the next world and Australia are not particularly encouraging. I think this world is quite good enough for me, Cousin Cecily.
Yes, but are you good enough for it?
Well, I'm not that, but I think you can make it your mission to try to reform me.
I'm afraid I have no time this afternoon.
Huh, well, would you mind trying to reform myself this afternoon?
It's rather quixotic of you, but I think you should try.
Thanks. I already feel better.
You're looking a little worse.
That is because I'm hungry.
How thoughtless of me. When one is going to lead an entirely new life, one requires regular wholesome meals. Won't you come in?
Yes, but might I have a butterhole first? I never have any appetite unless I have a butterhole first.
A yellow flower?
No, I'll sooner have a pink rose.
Why?
Because, Cousin Cecily, you're like a pink rose.
I don't think it should be right for you to talk to me like that. Miss Prism never says such things.
Oh, and Miss Prism is a short-sighted old lady.
She says all good looks are a snare.
They are a snare that every sensible man would like to be caught in.
I don't think I'd care to catch a sensible man. I should know what to talk to him about.
You're much too alone, dear Doctor. You should get married. Miss Anthony, I can understand. A woman who never.
Believe me, I do not deserve so any logistic of phrase. The percent, as well as the practice of the primitive church, was distinctly against the matrimony.
That is obviously the reason why the primitive church is not accept the present day. And you don't seem to realize, dear doctor, that persistently remaining single, a man converts himself into a permanent public temptation. Men should be more careful. This very intimacy will make your vessels astray.
But is a man not equally attractive when married?
No man is ever attractive except to his wife.
And often I've been told, not even to her.
That depends on the intellectual difficulties of the woman. Maturity can always be depended on. Earnest can be trusted. The young woman agreed. I spoke culturally. My favorite word was not for fruits. But where is Cecily?
Perhaps she falls to the schools.
Mr. Worthing!
Miss Worthing.
We don't expect you till Monday afternoon.
I returned sooner than I expected. Dr. Chasuble, I hope you are well.
Mr. Worthing, I trust this scar was not betokening any terrible calamity.
My brother,
More sleep with this extravagance?
Still leading us life of pleasure.
dead.
Your brother Ernest, dead.
Quite dead.
What a lesson for him. I trust you will profit by it.
Mr. Worthing, I offer my sincere condolences. But if there's any consolation, you always know they're most generous and forgiving your brothers.
Poor Ernest, he had many faults, but this is a sad blow.
Very sad indeed. Were you with him at the end?
No, he died abroad. In Paris, in fact. I got a telegram from the manager of the Grand Hotel.
What's the cause of that intervention?
A severe chill, it seems?
And the man so let him read.
Charity, dear mistress, and charity. We are not all perfect. I myself, I won't particularly accept that with drafts. Would the interment take place here?
No. He expressed his desire to be buried in Paris.
In Paris? I really probably points to a very serious state in mind, alas. You would no doubt wish me to make some sly allusion to his tragic domestic affliction next Sunday. My ceremonial on the meaning of the man in the wilderness can be adapted to almost any occasion. Joyful, or as in this present case, distressing. I appreciate harvest celebrations, christenings, on confirmations, on days of humiliation, and festivals. The last time I delivered was in the cathedral, as a charity ceremony on behalf of the Society for the Prevention of Discontent among the Upper Orders. The bishop who was present was much struck by some of the analogies that I drew.
You mentioned christenings, I believe. You're very good at christening? I mean, you are continuously christening, that's it.
It is ironic to say one of the rector's most constant duties in his prayers. I have often spoken to poor pastors on the subject, but it always seems like there's this.
But is there any particular name you're interested in, Mr. Worthy? Your brother was indeed unmarried, was he not?
Oh, yes.
People who live entirely for pleasure usually are.
But it is not for any child. I am very particularly fond of children. No, the fact is I would like to be christened myself this afternoon, if you have nothing else better to do.
But surely, Mr. Worthy, you've been christened already.
I have no recollection of it.
You have any great doubts on the matter?
I certainly intend to have, but I don't think you would mind if I was too old.
Oh, no, not at all. In fact, the sprinkling and the immersion of adults is a perfectly canonical practice.
Immersion?
I indeed know how the apprehensions, Mr. Worthy. Sprinkling is all that is necessary, or I think advisable. Our weather is so changeable. At what hour was the ceremony performed?
Oh, I might trot around about 5.
Perfectly. In fact, I have 2 ceremony cases performed at that hour. A case of twins that occurred recently when the outlying cottages of your own estate. Poor Jenkins the caterer, such a hard-working man.
Oh, I don't see it much fun in being christened along with other babies. It'd be childish. I might come by around 5:30. Is that all right?
Admirably. And now, dear Mr. Worthing, I will not intrude into a house of sorrow any longer. What seems to us better trials are often blessings in disguise.
This seems to me a blessing of extremely of this kind.
Uncle Jack, what a surprise. We weren't expecting you till Monday afternoon. Well, what horrid clothes you've got on. Do go and change them.
Cecily!
My child.
Uncle Jack, do look happy. You look as if you've had a toothache. And I've got such a big surprise for you. Guess who's in the dining room? Your brother.
What?
Your brother Ernest, he arrived about half an hour ago.
What nonsense! I haven't got a brother!
Oh, don't say that. However badly he may have behaved to you in the past, he's still your brother. You couldn't be so heartless to disown him. I'll go get him and you will shake hands with him, won't you, Uncle Jack?
These are very joyful tidings.
After we have all resolved his loss, his son seems to be particularly distressing.
My brother? In the dining room? I don't know how to make sense of this. Good heavens!
Brother John, I come up to town to tell you I need to live a better life in the future.
Uncle Jack, you're not going to refuse your own brother's hand.
His coming down here is perfectly disgraceful. He knows very well why.
Uncle Jack, do be nice. There's some good in everyone. He's just been telling me about his poor invalid friend, Mr. Burns, and his horrible state of health. And surely there must be some good in someone who is technically an invalid.
He's been talking about Burns, has he?
Yes, Mr. Burns is in a horrible state of health.
Well, I won't have him talk to you about Burns or anything else. It is enough to drive one perfectly frantic.
I will admit that some of the faults were on my fault. But I can't admit that Brother John's coldness to me is particularly hurtful, especially since this is my first time ever being here.
Uncle Jack, if you don't shake hands with Ernest, I will never forgive you.
Never forgive me?
Never, never, never.
Well, this will be the last time I ever shall.
It's pleasant, is it not, to see so perfect a reconciliation. We might have these two brothers alone.
Cecily will come with us.
Certainly, Miss Prism, my little task of reconciliation is over.
You have done a beautiful action, Dan, my dear child.
We must not be premature with our judgment.
I feel very happy.
Algy, you young scoundrel! You've got to get out of here as soon as possible. I don't allow any Burns in here.
I have put Mr. Ernestine in the room next to your sir. I suppose that is all right?
What?
I put Mr. Ernest's luggage, sir. I have packed and put in the room next to your own.
His luggage?
Yes, sir. 3 portmanteaus, a dressing case, 2 hat boxes, and a large luncheon basket.
I won't be here longer than a week.
Merriman, order the dog cart at once. Mr. Ernest has been suddenly called back to town.
Yes, sir.
What a fearful liar you are, Jack. I haven't been called back to town.
Yes, you have.
I haven't heard anyone call me.
Your duty as a gentleman calls you back.
My duty as a gentleman has never interfered with my immune system life in the smallest degree.
I can quite understand that.
But Cecily is a darling.
Don't speak of Miss Cardew like that. I don't like it.
Well, I don't like your clothes. You look perfectly ridiculous in them. Why are you dressed for mourning for a man who's going to stay in your own estate for more than a week as a guest? I call it grotesque.
You aren't staying with me as a guest or anything else. You've got to leave by the 4:05 train.
Well, I certainly won't leave if you're still dressed in mourning. I find that most unfriendly. Ever I was in deep mourning, I certainly wouldn't leave you. Well, if I did, I find it most unfriendly.
Well, will you leave if I change my clothes?
If you're not too long. I haven't seen anyone take so long to dress with such little results.
Well, at any rate, it's always better than always being overdressed as you are.
But if I'm occasionally overdressed, I make up for it for being, what was that word? Oh yeah, immensely overeducated.
Your vanity is ridiculous, your conduct an outrage, and your presence here in my garden utterly absurd. But you've got to leave by that 4:05 train. This Burnsing, as you call it, has not been a great success for you.
It has been a great success. One of the most best burns I ever had in my life. I'm in love with Cecily. That is all. But I must make another arrangements for another Burnsing. Ah, there she is.
Oh, I nearly came back to water the flowers. I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
Oh no, he has gone to order a dog cart for me.
So he's going to take you for a nice drive.
No, he's going to send me away.
Then we have got to part.
Yes, a sad party it is.
It is always very painful to part from one who has known such a brief space of time. The absence of old friends can endure with equanimity, but even a momentarily separation from one who has just been introduced is almost unbearable.
Thank you.
The dog cart is at the door, sir.
It can wait, Merriman, for 5 minutes.
Yes, miss.
Cecily, can I say quite frankly, that you seem to be in every way a personification of absolute perfection.
I think your frankness does you great credit, Ernest. If you allow me, I will copy your remarks into my diary.
Cecily, do you really keep a diary? I'll give anything to look at it, may I?
Oh no, it's simply your young girl's thoughts and impressions written down for publication. But I hope you will order a copy when it comes to volume form. But pray, Ernest, don't stop. I have almost reached absolute perfection. You may go on now. Oh, don't cough, Ernest. When one is dictated, one should speak fluently. And besides, I don't know how to spell cough.
Well, Cecily, can I say that I had dared to love you wildly, passionately, devotedly, and hopelessly?
I don't think you should tell me that you love me wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly. Hopelessly doesn't seem to make much sense, does it?
Cecily!
The dog cart is waiting, sir.
Tell her to come around next week, at the same hour.
Yes, sir.
Uncle Jack would be very much annoyed if he knew you were staying till next week at the same hour?
Oh, I don't care about Jack. I don't care about anyone else in the whole world. I love you, Cecily. You will marry me, won't you?
You silly boy, we have been engaged for the past 3 months.
Oh, for the last 3 months.
Yes, it will be exactly 3 months on Thursday.
Oh, when was the engagement actually settled?
The 14th of February last, worn out by your entire ignorance of my existence, I accepted you under this zero tree here. Here is the ring I bought in your name, and this is the true lover's bangle I always promised you to wear.
Oh, did I get you this? It's pretty, isn't it? I got great taste.
Yes, that's the excuse I've always given you for leading such a bad life. And here is the box in which I keep all your dear letters.
Oh, Cecily, my letters. But I've never written you any letters.
You need hardly remind me of that. I remember only 2 while I was forced to write them for you. I wrote them 3 times a week and sometimes oftener.
Oh, do let me read them.
Oh no, I couldn't possibly. The 3 you wrote me after I broke off the engagement are so beautiful and so badly spelled that sometimes I could hardly read them without crying just a little bit.
Wait, does that mean our engagement was actually broken off?
Of course it was. On the 22nd of last March. You can see the entry if you like. Today I broke off my engagement with Ernest. I feel it is better to do so. The weather still continues charming.
But Cecily, why did you break it off? I have done nothing at all. Cecily, I'm greatly hurt to hear that you have broken off our engagement, especially since the weather was so charming.
Well, it wouldn't have been a really serious engagement unless I had broken off at least once. But besides, I forgave you before the week was out.
Cecily, you're a perfect angel.
You dear romantic boy. I hope your hair curls naturally, does it?
It does.
I'm so glad.
We'll never break off our engagement ever again?
I don't think I could now that I've actually met you, but there still is a question of your name.
Yes, my name.
You must not laugh at me, Ernest, but it has always been a girlish dream of mine to love somebody of the name Ernest, and inspires absolute confidence. I'd pity any poor woman whose husband isn't called Ernest.
Wait, Cecily, would that mean you could not love me if I had some other name?
But what name?
Oh, any name like Algernon, for instance?
But I don't like the name of Algernon.
But my sweet, darling Cecily, I cannot see why I should object to the name Algernon. I believe it's an aristocratic name. If I have the chance to the bankruptcy court, I'd call Algernon. But seriously, Cecily, would you not love me if my name was Algie?
You know, Algie, that's a plan. I might respect you, I might admire your character, but I feel I will not be able to give you my undivided attention.
Cecily, your rector here, he has all the practice of the ceremonies of the church.
Yes, he's never read a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
And it must mean it from important custody. I mean business.
Oh,
I shan't be away more than 30 minutes.
considering that we have been engaged since February the 14th, and you were going to leave me such a long period as half an hour, couldn't you make it 20 minutes?
I'll be back in no time.
What an infamous boy he is. I like him so much. I must enter his proposal into my diary.
Miss Fairfax has just called from the station. On very important business, Miss Fairfax states.
Miss Fairfax, I suppose one of the good elderly women associated with Uncle Jack and his charity work. Tell Miss Fairfax to come here and bring tea.
Yes, miss.
I don't like women who work with charity. I feel it is so forward of them.
Miss Fairfax.
Pray let me introduce myself to you. My name is Cecily Cardew.
Cecily Cardew? What a sweet name. I like you already more than I can say. My first impressions of people are never wrong.
How nice of you to like me so much after we've known each other for a comparatively short time. Pray sit down.
I may call you Cecily, may I not?
With pleasure,
And you will always call me Gwendolyn, won't you?
if you wish.
And that is all quite settled then, is it not?
I hope so.
Perhaps this might be a favorable opportunity for my mentioning who I am. My father is Lord Bracknell. You have never heard of him, I suppose?
I don't think so.
Outside of the family circle, Papa, I am pleased to say, is entirely unknown. I think that is quite as it should be. The home seems to be the proper sphere for the man, and indeed, once he begins to neglect his domestic duties, he becomes painfully effeminate, does he not? And I don't like that. It makes men so very attractive. Cecily, Mama, whose views on education are remarkably strict, has brought me up to be extremely short-sighted. So you don't mind my looking at you very closely.
Oh, not at all. I am very fond of being looked at.
You are here on a short visit, I suppose?
Oh no, I live here.
Really? Your mother, no doubt, or some other female relative advanced in years resides here as well?
I have no mother, nor any relations.
Indeed.
My guardian, with the assistance of Miss Prism, has the arduous task of looking after me.
Your guardian?
I am Mr. Worthing's ward.
It is strange. He never mentioned to me he had a ward. How secretive of him. He grows more interesting hourly. I am not sure, however, that this news inspires me with feelings of unmixed delight. I am very fond of you, Cecily. I liked you ever since I met you. But I am bound to state that now that I know you are Mr. Worthing's ward, I cannot help expressing a wish you were, well, just a bit older than you seem to be, and not quite so very alluring in appearance. In fact, if I may speak candidly,
Pray do. I think when anybody has anything unpleasant to say, they should be quite candid.
well, Cecily, to speak with perfect candor, I wish you were fully 42 and more than usually plain for your age. Ernest has a strong, upright nature. Disloyalty would be as impossible to him as deception. But even men of the noblest possible moral character are extremely susceptible to the physical charms of others. Modern, no less ancient history supplies us with many most painful examples of what I refer to now. If it were not so, history would be quite unreadable.
I beg your pardon, Gwendolyn. Did you say Ernest?
Yes,
But it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is my guardian. It is his brother, his elder brother.
Ernest never mentioned to me he had a brother.
I am sorry to say they have not been on good terms for quite some time.
Ah, that accounts for it. And now that I think of it, I have not heard any man mentioning his brother. The subject seems distasteful to most men. You have lifted a load from my mind, Cecily. I was growing almost anxious. It would have been terrible if a cloud had come across a friendship such as ours, would it not? Of course, you are quite sure it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is your guardian.
Quite sure. In fact, I'm going to be his.
I beg your pardon?
My dearest Gwendolyn, there is no reason why it should be a secret to you. I'm sure our little county newspaper is sure to chronicle the fact in the next week. Mr. Ernest Worthing and I are engaged to be married.
My dearest Cecily, I feel there's been some slight error. Mr. Ernest Worthing is engaged to me. The announcement will appear in the Morning Post Saturday at the latest.
Ernest proposed to me exactly 10 minutes ago.
It is certainly very curious, for Mr. Ernest Worthing proposed to me at exactly 5:30 yesterday afternoon. If you would care to verify the incident, pray do so. I never travel anywhere without my diary. One always needs something sensational to read on the train. I am so sorry, dear Cecily, if it is of any disappointment to you, but I am afraid I have the prior claim.
My dearest Gwendolyn, it would distress me more than I could possibly tell you if it caused you any mental or physical anguish. But I feel bound to point out that since Ernest proposed to you, he has clearly changed his mind.
If the poor fellow has been entrapped into any foolish engagement, I shall consider it my duty to rescue him at once and with a firm hand.
Whatever unfortunate entanglement my dear boy may have gotten into, I will never reproach him with it after we are married.
Do you allude to me, Miss Cardew, as an entanglement? On occasion of this kind, it becomes more than a moral duty to speak one's mind. It becomes a pleasure.
Do you suggest, Miss Fairfax, I entrapped Ernest into an engagement? How dare you? This is no time for wearing the shallow mask of manners. When I see a spade, I call it a spade.
I am glad to say I have never seen a spade. It is obvious that our social spheres have been widely different.
Shall I good tea here as usual, miss?
Yes, as usual.
Are there many interesting walks in the vicinity, Miss Cardew?
A great many. From the top of the hills, one can see 5 counties.
5 counties? I don't think I should like that. I hate crowds.
I suppose that's why I live in town.
Quite a well-kept garden this is, Miss Cardew.
So glad you like it, Miss Fairfax.
I had no idea there were any flowers in the country.
Flowers are as common here as people are in London.
personally. I cannot understand how anybody manages to exist in the country if anybody who is anybody does. The country always bores me to death.
This is what they call agriculture depression, is it not? May I offer you some tea, Miss Fairfax?
Thank you. Detestable girl, but I require tea.
Sugar?
No, thank you. Sugar is not fashionable anymore.
Cake? Or bread and butter?
Bread and butter. Cake is rarely seen at the best houses nowadays.
Hand that to Miss Fairfax.
You have filled my tea with sugar, and though I asked most distinctly for bread and butter, you have given me cake. I am known for the gentleness of my disposition and the extraordinary sweetness of my character. But I warn you, Miss Cardew, you may go too far.
To save my poor, innocent, trusting Ernest, there are no lengths to which I would not go.
From the moment I met you, I distrusted you. I felt that you were false and deceitful. I am never deceived in such matters. My first impressions of people are invariably right.
Seems to me, Miss Fairfax, I'm trespassing on your valuable time. No doubt you have any other calls in the neighborhood.
Ernest! My own Ernest!
Gwendolyn,
A moment. You don't happen to be engaged to this young lady here, do you?
to dear little Cecily? Of course not. What could have put such an idea into your pretty little head?
You may.
I knew there must have been some misunderstanding. The gentleman whose arm is present around your waist is my guardian, Mr. John Worthing.
I beg your pardon?
This is Uncle Jack.
Jack! Oh.
Here is Ernest.
My love.
A moment. May I ask you if you are engaged to be married to this young lady?
To what young lady? Good heavens, Gwendolyn!
Yes, to good heavens, Gwendolyn. I mean, to Gwendolyn.
Actually not. We'll put such a pretty little idea in your pretty little head.
Thank you. You may.
My dearest Cecily, I felt there was some slight error. The gentleman whose arm is currently around you is my cousin, Mr. Algernon Moncrief.
Algernon Moncrief? Oh, are you called Algernon?
I cannot deny it.
Is your name really John?
I could deny it if I liked. I could deny anything if I liked, but my name certainly is John. It has been John for years.
A gross deception has been practiced upon both of us.
My poor wounded Cecily.
My sweet wronged Gwendolyn.
You will call me sister, will you not?
There's just one question I would like to be permitted to ask my guardian.
An excellent idea. Mr. Worthing, there is just one question I would like to be permitted to put to you. Where is your brother Ernest? We are both engaged to be married to your brother Ernest, so it is of some importance to us to know where your brother Ernest is at present.
Gwendolyn, Cecily, it pains me to be put into such a position like this. I have never been put into such a painful position in all of my life. I am very inexperienced in speaking the truth. But I have no brother named Ernest. I don't have a brother at all. I've never had a brother of any kind.
No brother at all?
Nope,
Had you ever a brother of any kind?
not even of any kind.
It has become quite clear, Cecily, that neither of us is engaged to be married to anyone.
This is not a very good position for a young girl to be put in, is it?
Let us go into the house. They will hardly venture to come after us there.
No, men are so cowardly, aren't they?
This ghastly state of things is what you call Burnsing, isn't it?
Yes, one of the most amazing bird scenes I've ever had in my life.
Well, you have no right to Burns here.
One has the right to Burns anywhere one chooses. Every serious Burnses know this.
Serious Burnses, good heavens!
Well, one must be serious about something, and one wants to get any amusement in life. I happen to be very serious about Burnsing. As for you, I have the remotest idea. You have such a trivial nature of yourself.
The only happiness I have in the whole of this wretched business is that your friend Burns is completely exploded. You won't be able to come down to the country as often as you like.
Your brother, he's a little off color, isn't he? It seems you won't be able to disappear to London quite so often as a wicked custom was. Not a bad thing either.
And as for your conduct towards Miss Cardew, you're taking a sweet and simple, innocent young girl like her is quite inexcusable, not to mention that she is my ward.
I can see no positive offense that you can make up to trying to deceive a young, well-experienced, and innocent young lady like Gwendolyn. Especially to say the fact that she is my first cousin.
I just wanted to be engaged to Gwendolyn. I love her.
Well, I simply want to be engaged to Cecily. I adore her.
Well, I see no possibility in that.
Well, I can see you, Jack, to be ever united with Gwendolyn.
That is none of your business.
Well, if it was my business, I wouldn't be talking out in public.
As Barry Bobo talks about one business in public, only presidents ever speak of their business in public, or merely at dinner parties.
How can you sit there calmly eating muffins when we are in this wretched business?
I am displeased. It is the only thing that consoles me. When I'm in great trouble, anyone who knows me intimately will know that I will reject everything except food and drink. At the present moment, I am unhappy. And besides, I'm particularly fond of muffins.
Well, you don't have to eat them all in this greedy way.
Well, I wish you would have a tea cake. I don't really like tea cake.
Good heavens, I think someone should be able to eat his own muffins in his own garden.
But you just said it was perfectly harmless to eat the muffins.
I said it was perfectly heartless of you, under the circumstances.
That may be, but the muffins are the same.
Algie, I don't want you here, just go.
No, I cannot leave. You cannot ask me to leave unless I have my dinner first. I never leave without my dinner first. No one ever does. Except vegetarians. People like that. Besides, I tried to arrange with Dr. Chasuble to be present under the name Ernest at the 6:15.
Algie, the sooner you give up, the better. I have made arrangements myself at 5:30 to be christened under the name of Ernest. I will naturally take the name. Gwendolyn would wish it. We both can't be named Ernest. It would be silly. Besides, I have the perfect right to be christened. I don't know if I ever have been christened.
Yes, but I haven't been christened in years.
Yes, but you have been christened. That's the thing.
That may be, but I know that my constitution can stand it. But I think that's really dangerous of you, Ernest, trying to venture on it now. Especially to say the least, that there was a man who was going to be pulled out from London from the same name by a severe chill.
I thought you said a severe chill wasn't hereditary.
It used to be, but now I dare say now that science has made such improvements in life. Jack, you're at the muffins again. I wish you weren't. There's only 2 left. Give me those.
Algie, I don't want you here. Just go.
No, you cannot possibly ask me to leave. There's still 2 muffins left, and I still haven't finished my tea.
They've been eating muffins. That's it.
They don't seem to notice us at all. Couldn't you cough?
But I haven't coughed.
They're looking at us. What effrontery!
They're approaching, as that is very poor of them.
We must preserve a dignified silence.
Certainly, it's the only thing to do now.
This dignified silence seems to produce an unpleasant effect.
A most distasteful one.
But we will not be the first to speak.
Certainly not.
Mr. Worthing, I have something very particular to ask you. Much depends on your reply.
Gwendolyn, your common sense is invaluable. Mr. Moncrief, kindly answer me the following question. Why did you pretend to be my guardian's brother?
In order that I have a chance to meet you.
That seems a satisfactory explanation, does it not?
Yes, darling, if you can believe it.
I don't. That does not affect the wonderfully beauteous answer.
True. In matters of grave importance, style, not sincerity, is the vital thing. Mr. Worthing, what explanation do you have to offer me for pretending to have a brother? Was it so that you may have the opportunity of coming up to town as often as possible to see me?
Can you doubt it?
I have the gravest doubts upon the subject, but I intend to crush them. This is no time for German skepticism. Their answers seem to be satisfactory, especially Mr. Worthy's. That seems to have the stamp of truth upon it.
Mr. Moncrief's voice alone inspires absolute credulity.
So you think we should forgive them?
Yes, I mean no.
True. I have forgotten. There are principles at stake here that one cannot surrender. Which of us should tell them the task is not a pleasant one?
Could we not both speak at the same time?
An excellent idea. I nearly always speak at the same time as other people. Would you care to take the time for me?
Certainly.
Your Christian names are still an insuperable barrier. That is all.
Our Christian names? Is that all? But we're going to be christened this afternoon.
For my sake, you are prepared to do this terrible thing.
I am.
To please me, you are to face this fearful ordeal.
I am.
How absurd it is to talk of the equality of the sexes. When matters of self-sacrifice are concerned, men are infinitely beyond us.
We are!
I have moments of physical courage which women know absolutely nothing about.
Darling,
Darling,
Lady Bracknell.
Good heavens!
Gwendolyn, what does this mean? Merely that I am engaged to Mr. Worthing.
Come here, sit down.
Sit down immediately.
Hesitation of any kind is either domesticating the old, or a physical weakness in the young.
Try, sir. My daughter's sudden flight.
Which means I trusted over trusting you. I bought her trust with merely a small coin. I followed her at once by legislation. Her unhappy father, as I'm about to say, under the impression that she was attending a more than usual length lecture of the University's Christmas Teams as a permanent income on that. I do not propose to deceive him. I've never deceived him. Never deceived him. Before. But you must understand that all communication between you and my daughter must cease immediately.
But I am engaged to be married to Gwendolyn, Lady Bracknell.
Of course not. Algernon,
yes, Aunt Augusta?
is this the house where your friend Mr. Burns resides?
Oh, Burns? No, he does not live here. In fact, Burns, he died.
Died? When did he die? His death is very sudden.
Oh, Burns, I killed him this afternoon. I mean, I found out he died this afternoon.
Under what pretense, Algie?
Oh, Burns, he quite exploded.
Exploded! Was Mr. Burns part of a revolutionary outrage? Oh my gosh. I did not know Mr. Burns was part of social legislation. Whatever that thing was called.
No, Aunt Augusta, what I mean, he was found out. Yes, the doctors found out that Burns could not live anymore.
Well, that does what's with him. May I ask, who is that thing my nephew's holding?
That lady, if you didn't know what that was, is Miss Cardew, my ward.
I'm going to be engaged to Cecily, Aunt Augusta.
Oh, God. Another engagement? Are you kidding me?
I do not know
If there's anything exciting in the air, this particular spot in Fort Hertfordshire, the amount of engagement that has been going on without adults seems to me a little bit above the average. What is your name?
Cecily. Cecily.
She's pretty, isn't he? Is there anything in particular you want to ask her, or is she just going to stand there and look pretty?
Child.
I'm
How old
sorry.
are you?
I'm really only 18, but I always admit to 20 at evening parties.
Not unsatisfactory, is it? Are you going to speak, or are you just speechless? Come on, out with it.
18, but admitting to 20. You did right to make a slight alteration. When a woman says her age, it looks so calculizing. 18, admission 20.
Yes, what about it?
You insolent child. But then let's leave. Wait. Mr. Whiting. May I ask, does this lady have any fortune?
Fortune? Is it fortune, you mean? All right. She has about 130,000 pounds in the bank in funds. That is all. Goodbye, Lisa Bracknell.
Down, darling. Your dress is sadly simple, and your hair seems as natural as left it. But you're only 18. I hope you know that my nephew Algernon has nothing but his debts to rely on.
Anything else?
Well, I am pretty handsome.
Conceded much?
Well, I see. I must allow you to be married.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell.
I mean, Cecily.
You're already mixing up your daughters, I see.
Oh, they are both mine now.
I'm sorry, but this engagement is quite out of the question. You know, Lady Bracknell, she cannot be married without consent of mine until she comes of age.
Why your consent?
Because I'm cool.
Does God take care of you?
Yes, I do. That's what you're asking.
Well, you're only 18. It will not be long till you are of age, so I don't
Hate
think...
to interrupt you again, but...
Can I finish?
No! But she is not coming of age until she is 35.
Algie, could you wait for me until I was 35?
You know I could. Of course I could.
Yes, I felt that instinctively, but I hate even waiting 5 minutes for anybody. It always makes me feel rather cross. I know I have no punctuality myself, but I do like punctuality in others, and waiting, even to be married, is quite out of the question.
Huh. Then what is to be done?
I don't know, Mr. Moncrief.
35 is not that age, dear. Many women of high society, high spitter, they stay at the age of 35 on their own free will. Oh, lady, what was that lady's name? Harbury?
I thought it was Dumbledore.
Oh, Dumbleton.
Dumbledore.
Yes. Lady Dumbleton. She was 30, she's been 35 ever since she became 40. And that was many years ago. So I do not think you are important in either case.
Well, if she can't marry until she's 35, and he can't wait, and she can't wait, what is to be done then?
That's great.
I'd rather.
Well, if she can't wait, it is all in your hands. Deal or no deal. If you consent to my marriage with Gwendolyn, I will most gladly let your nephew make an alliance with my lord.
We are Lady Gwendolyn, because I am sure you know that what you propose is quite out of the question.
Then passionate celibacy is all that can be said for either of us.
Gwendolyn, we have Miss miss at least 5 trains. To miss any more would be to comment on the platform. Let's go.
Everything's got ready for the christenings.
The christening, sir. Is that not somewhat premature?
But these gentlemen have expressed desire for immediate baptism.
Both of you. They're old!
Am I supposed to have no christenings at all this afternoon?
I feel as if, under the circumstances, there is no possibility of us needing that. I'm sorry.
I am grieved to hear this evidence from you, Miss Wood. They say it was a views I completely refute for unopposed. However, as your cousin who seems particularly secular, I will leave Richard Jones. In fact, I've just been informed by the Purebred that this prison has waited for me for an hour and a half in the desert.
Miss Prison, did I bear your message in Miss Prison?
Yes, Lady Blacktop. I'm on my way to join you.
This might be some vital importance for me and Lord Bracknell. Is this Miss Prism, a woman, quite old? She is remotely connected with education?
She is the most cultivated lady, and I picture respect to her.
Close enough. May I ask for her?
She approaches. She is not.
I was told that you expected me in the vestry, Dear Canon. I've been waiting for an hour and 3/4.
Prism? Prism? Come here. Come here immediately. Prism, where's the baby? 20 years ago, on 104 Gossamer Street, you left Lord Bracknell's in my house with a preambulator that held a baby of the male sex. After through the investigation of Metropolitan Police, we found the preambulator. But guess what? The baby wasn't inside. There was a manuscript, the 3-volume novel of somewhat repelling,
Affectionate?
sentimentality.
Oh.
It was disturbing to read it. But the baby was not there. Where's the baby?
Lady Bracknell, I admit with shame that I do not know. I only wish I did. The plain facts of the case are these. On the morning of the day that you mentioned, I had heard as usual to take the baby out in its bassinet. I had also with me a somewhat old but capacious handbag in which I had intended to place a manuscript of fiction that I had written in my few unoccupied hours. In a moment of mental abstraction, where I could never forgive myself, I placed the manuscript of the perambulator and the baby in the handbag.
But where did you put the handbag?
Do not ask me, Mr. Worthy.
But this is a matter of no small importance to me. I need to know where you placed that handbag.
In one of the largest railway stations in England.
What large railway station?
Victoria. The Brighton line.
You have got to be kidding me. Gwendolyn, wait for me at once. I will be right back.
If you are not too long, I will wait for you all my life.
I dare not expect you, Chasuble. I must tell you that.
Where is it?
I must tell you that in the People of High Society, occurrences that are very unwanted are not supposed to occur.
Uncle Jack seems strangely agitated.
Your party is a very emotional nature.
I wish you would come to some conclusion.
The suspense is terrible. I hope it will last.
They had out now.
This prison, is this a handbag? Examine it carefully. The happiest more than one life depends on it.
after it received in younger and happier days. And here is the stain on the lining that I received from the temperance beverage that broke out. And here on the lock are my initials. I had forgotten that a moment of extravagance I had them placed there. The bag is undoubtedly mine. I feel quite delightful that it has been restored to me, especially after all these years.
More has been returned to you than the handbag. I was the baby that you put into it.
You?
Yes! Mother!
Mr. Worthing! I am unmarried.
Unmarried. I do not deny that this is a serious blow. But who can cast a stone against one who has suffered? Cannot repentance wipe out an act of folly? Why is there one law for men and another law for women? Mother, I forgive you.
Mr. Worthing, there is no marriage. There is no woman that can tell you who you really are. Don't call me mother.
Lady Bracknell, I hate to seem inquisitive, but would you kindly please tell me who I am?
I'm afraid the news I have to give you will not at all please me. You are the son of my late sister, Lady Moncrief, and consequently, Algernon, older brother.
Algy's elder brother? Then I had brother after all. Come over here. Dr. Constable, my poor unfortunate brother. Miss Prison, my poor unfortunate brother. Lady Bracknell, my poor unfortunate brother.
Don't touch me.
Okay. Algy, you young scoundrel, you've got to treat me with more respect. You've never treated me like a brother in all of your life.
Oh, not till today, old boy, I do say. I was out of practice, but I did try my best.
My own. But what own are you? What is your Christian name now that you have become someone else?
Good heavens! I had not thought of that fact. Your decision is unalterable, I believe.
I never change, except in my affections.
What a noble nature you have, Gwendolyn.
Lady Bracknell, had I been christened?
Anything that money was worth has been lavished on you by your fond and doting parents. They made them go broke. They couldn't christen me.
Then I was christened after all. What was my name? Tell me the worst.
Well, being the eldest, you're named after your father.
Yes, but what was my father's Christian name?
I cannot recall the general's name at the moment, but I have no doubt he had one.
Algy, can you recall what our father's Christian name was?
My dear boy, we weren't even on speaking terms. He died abroad when I was a year old.
Lady Bracknell, his names would appear in the army list of the period, wouldn't they?
The man was, yes.
The army list of the period are right here.
My favorite book.
Here it is. Aha! 1840. Generals. Malum, Maximum, Magny. Oh, what ghastly names they have. Magsby, Migbee, Markby, Moncrief. 1860. Lieutenant Colonel, Colonel, General. Christian names. Ernest, John. I knew my name was Ernest. I had told you my name was Ernest all along. Naturally, of course.
Ernest, my own Ernest, I felt from the first you could have no other name.
But I'm so sorry. I had been speaking the truth all my life. Man has never felt so much sorrow in his life after speaking the truth. But anyways, will you forgive me?
I can, for I feel that you are sure to change.
My own one.
Letitia.
Frederick, at last!
Cecily, at last.
Gwendolyn, at last.
My nephews, you seem to be showing some triviality.
As a matter of fact, Aunt Augusta, I feel for the first time in my life the vital importance of being earnest.